Go to the moon. Yeah, there'll be a day when AI takes over, it'll make us their pets. Word God, it is not a lot. Hi, I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, your personal astrophysicist, and I'm here at Penguin, UK, to answer some of your deepest, most pressing questions. that work? Okay. Have you really thought about what it would take to fake a moon landing? Because the rocket did launch. We all saw the rocket launch. Okay? So there's hardware there. They're like office buildings, blueprints for the design of the Saturn V rocket. The hundreds of engineering hours that went behind this and the records of those designs. If you wanted to fake the moon landing, you would have to fake all of these documents. And it just seems to me it's way easier to just go to the moon. Has anyone considered that? Just go to the moon. That's easier than faking all of this. So, no, yeah, we went to the moon. So climate change will not make Earth uninhabitable. Climate change will make Earth a living hell. In fact, I live in New York City, where in our harbor we have the Statue of Liberty. And there she is holding the Declaration of Independence. And in her left arm and her right arm is the torch. If you melt the water ice that's on land, the ocean level will rise to reach her left elbow. So that takes out all of New York City. And basically every other coastal city that we've spent thousands of years building since the dawn of civilization. So life will be very, very different. So the way I look at it is, there are people who want to colonize other planets, give us an escape route. We trash Earth, let's move elsewhere, and hope we don't trash that. Well, there aren't many places to move. You'll vaporize on Venus, so you're not going to Venus. Mars rotates once every 24 hours. That's kind of interesting. It's tipped on its axis, as Earth is, which means it has seasons. It has polar ice caps, the way we still do at this moment. And there's evidence of running water on its surface. So there's a chance we could terraform Mars, like the Earth in the past decades. Turn something that's not like Earth into something that's like Earth. Then you just move there. So here's the catch. If you have the power of geoengineering to turn Mars into Earth, then you have the power of geoengineering to turn Earth back into Earth. I don't know if God exists. Deeply religious people are certain he exists, he or it. There are ardent atheists who are sure God does not exist. My posture is, particularly in the monotheistic traditions, that God is typically described as being all-knowing, all-powerful, and all good. Yet I look back through history. In particular, there was I can choose many examples, but a famous example is the earthquake in Lisbon, Portugal. When was it? 1755, somewhere around there. 80,000 people died. By the way, that earthquake took place on All Saints' Day, in the morning, when most people, Lisbon, one of the holiest cities in Europe, most people were in church. Churches were the largest structures of the day. If you have an earthquake, what's the first building to collapse? It's the ones that are the largest, the most susceptible. So, people died in churches. Then, there's a tsunami that basically wiped Lisbon off the map. Either God is not all good, if we define good as being in the interest of your health and longevity, that's a pretty simple definition of something that's good for you, or God is not all powerful. But it's not clear whether God could be both of those at the same time for that event. So
good morning.
I take issue with what many people say God is. But there are other kinds of ways to think about God. There are enlightened religious people who would say God is the manifestation of the laws of physics in the universe. I don't have a problem with that. But is God the person who tells you who you should mate with,
Yeah,
what day you should eat what kind of food, and is that your God? That's different from this other one that maybe just sort of put the universe into place. So I don't really concern myself much with it unless someone finds a way that any understanding of God can give me insight into making another discovery. That hasn't happened yet. There are many people who will see things happen to them that are in their favor. They say, "Oh, someone's looking over me." So that's a fascinating phenomenon when that happens. And when you analyze those situations, what you find is that we as humans simply have a profound inability to understand statistics and probability. It's really that simple. And here's a quick experiment. Line up 1,000 people and give them a coin and have them flip the coin. And if whoever gets tails, tell them to sit down. So it's about half. So 500 people left. You repeat it. 250 people left. 125, 60, 30, 15, 8, 4, 2, 1. That's a thought experiment. So approximately half the people sat down every time they flip the coin. Half of them get heads, half get tails. There's one person that's standing at the end. That person flipped heads 10 consecutive times. So who does the press go to? The press goes to that person and say, "How do you feel about this?" "Well, I felt that heads energy about halfway through, and I kind of knew I was going to win. I saw heads on the thing." And did they interview anybody else who might have felt exactly the same way but didn't flip heads 10 times in a row? Because they're on their way home now. They're not there for the interview. So we're thinking that this guy had some kind of clairvoyance about his fate, or that he prayed or whatever. And so, whereas every time you do this experiment, basically, somebody flips heads 10 times in a row. And so we don't know how to handle coincidences or things that are rare for you, even if they're common in total. So, whatever God is not luck. We can demonstrate that mathematically. Personally, I'm not all that worried about artificial intelligence and robots taking over the world. But almost everyone I know who's an expert in it, they're worried. They're all worried. I'm reminded of Ray Bradbury, author of many great science fiction novels about Mars and other stories. He was once criticized. Someone asked him, "Ray, why do you have all these apocalyptic, futuristic stories? Is this what you think we have in store for ourselves?" And he says, "I don't write these because I think that's what our future will be. I write these stories so that you know what future to avoid." And I said, "Ooh, that's deep." So the fact that we've had our share of films that show computer intelligence taking over, I think it spooked us. And a little bit of spooking is a good thing. It means you'll move forward, you'll step lightly. But here's my reasoning for why I'm not as afraid as AI experts. Every manifestation of computer ability that has arisen has been parsed into some task or set of tasks that we previously had undertaken, and now the computer does it. So we used to build cars on an assembly line. Now robots build cars. And cars are better than they have ever been. People think of robots that'll run around and will have all this high intelligence. Well, go back 40 years ago, 50 years ago. People were imagining robots, humanoid robots, and then the robot would then drive your car. No, not today. The car is the robot. So the idea that you would have what they call general intelligence, some kind of entity that can learn anything and do anything and do it better than any of us, I just don't see that as the direction things are headed. We'll have tasks, we'll get some really good computer to figure out how to do it better than we can, and then it happens. So I'm not as worried. But if the concerns of AI experts are real and we need to heed them, yeah, there'll be a day when AI takes over and it'll make us their pets. We should all behave, learn how to behave better, because the day AI takes over, they're going to pass judgment on whether humans should continue or not in this world. They're rendering all these other animals extinct, they're destroying the environment, they can't even be shepherds of their own fate. So, yeah, they'll just exterminate us all. Have a nice day.
Saturday morning drawing session. Motherfuckers don't hardly see me draw, yo. That's crazy, right? When I be drawing shit. And this is straight from my imagination. I didn't really have a reference for this. So for something that's coming out of my mind, I think it's a okay drawing. And the fact that it has to be sectioned, or I'm assuming that it has to be sectioned drawings in order for this thing to work properly, but we'll definitely see. Um, Oh. So last night I recorded a, a impromptu episode for my TV show. Uh, we thought about it once before, and um, the schedules wasn't right for it. One of the local galleries has a really big member show twice a year, uh, in June and December. And for June, I thought about, hey, let's come out to the gallery and like interview the artists at the gallery. And the timing, like I said, the camera guy couldn't get there, so we didn't do it. But he texted me earlier this week. He was like, yo, first Friday is this week, yo. You want to go to the gallery and do the interviews? I was like, hell fucking yeah, I want to go to the gallery and do the interviews. So that's what I wound up doing last night. I don't have any footage, like video footage. Uh, but there's me interviewing one of the artists. And so you can't see, but there's the tripod from one camera, and then my man got the handheld camera. So we had two cameras on the interview, and I think I interviewed like 5 people, but there wasn't a lot of like I said, I didn't get a lot of pictures from it. Travis Prince live on location. Me checking some of the sound and some of the video playbacks on there. So a very, 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 very fun evening. Yo, King, what up, bro? Lou. Here working on some drawings, Lou. What you doing today? You see me in here drawing. Got my little paper towel smudgers. There's a weird name for these things. It's called chacrones or something. But like they actually make these. It's like a rolled up cardboard tube, and it's basically this, and it's the same thing. But it, how they roll it, it comes to a tapered point, so it's more like a pencil. And you can get them in like all sizes. but it's just like paper or I don't know. It's weird. But why buy these when you can just do this? I don't know. When I first tried it, I used to use my finger, and nobody, yo, that's, oh, you drawing too? Oh, you better be. So, that's what's up. But like nobody showed me to do that for some reason. I just tried that shit myself, yo, and I was like, yo, I like how that shit look. And then I can clearly remember, yo, my middle school art teacher. She said, "Why do you do that?" Because I started doing that shit in like elementary, yo. It's weird, man. Like if I had, I don't know, man. I had a good art teacher, but if I had a little bit more, I think I needed like a more sterner male figure in my life. I could have been a little prodigy, yo, as a fucking artist, but I was in them streets too bad, yo. I was in the streets too bad, man. And then like, I don't know, my generation, man, motherfuckers, peer pressure and shit, bro. I used to get picked at so bad for drawing sometimes. So a lot of people thought it was cool, but them motherfuckers like, oh, you little bitch ass artist. Go play some football. Like, man, I ain't never ever liked sports. I ain't never played sports and all that shit. But I don't know. Peer pressure used to make me not go as hard as I could with my art, even though I was good at that shit, man. Like just figuring out how to smudge the lead on the paper. And like I said, my art teacher, she was like, why do you do that? She was like, it looks nicer if you just have finer lines and just use good solid lines to make your shadows. And I was like, yeah, but I like how this looks. And I remember later on, like another one of my mentors, when I started painting, yeah, he said, why you blend your colors so much? He's like, you're like over blending. It almost looks like it's airbrushed. I'm like, yeah, 'cause I don't really like the brush strokes in the paint, yo. When I would lay the paint down, I want that shit to be like smooth. But I kind of changed up a little bit. Like later on, I kind of took his advice, but like early on, I was just like, I like my shit real fucking blended, yo. I just used to fucking go over that fucking wet paint mad times, yo. He's like, why are you doing that? I'm like, cuz I like how it looks like that, yo. But people get it now. You know what I'm saying? Now that I had a lot of practice at it, people like, oh, I see. Like, yeah, motherfuckers, this is what I was trying to show y'all. Just wasn't good at it yet. Now I'm all right. You know what I'm saying? I think I got the hang of this shit. I can ride my bike with no handlebars. No handlebars. Yo, you get 10 cool points if you tell me what band that is. I can keep a beat with a metronome. No metronome. And I can ride my bike with no handlebars. No handlebars. I don't know who that is, yo. This how she wanted me to shade, yo. And I can kind of shade like that, but I still think, like I say, if you smudge it, it just looks nicer. Nobody don't know what song that was. It's crazy, yo. I'm older than I think. What? Can't y'all see I used to be a comic book artist? Crazy. I did a comic one time, a half a comic. I ain't gonna lie, man. I keep telling people I did a comic book. We did a half a comic book. Because I was ready. But, man, some people, because I wasn't no writer, I was the artist. And the dude, he said he had the whole story ready. And so he gave me the concept. I did, and he was kind of an artist too, yo. He can draw a little bit. He was pretty good. And he gave me like some concept ideas of the basic plot and the characters and stuff. And he had like one or two characters already kind of designed. And so I took his drawings and just hyped them shits up and made a whole roster of characters. I did a couple of panels, but like he never really wrote out the damn story, yo. Like he just he just never wrote the story, yo. That's what's up, Lou. That man is an athlete. One of the greatest athletes. It's hard for y'all to see that white, but it does show up. right, all right. Enough of the awkward silence.
We got Dean in North Carolina.
Hi, Dean. Are you the Dean that I know? Dean?
Did I hit the wrong button?
No.
Dean,
Yeah,
hello.
I'm here.
Okay.
Hey.
I'm here. Hello.
Are you the Dean?
I'm the one that.
Okay.
I'm the one that visited. Yeah.
Cool. Hi.
Hey.
What you got for us?
Question I have is one of the things that I often hear, even whether it's from atheist experience talkies that are just talking with my atheist friends, is the statement that you can't.
All right, where do we go next?
Let's go Canadian Catholic.
Oh boy. I don't know if she was going to say that. Canadian Catholic, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hi, it's an honor to be back, both you, Jenna, and Matt.
Hi.
Very nice hosts.
Awesome.
So what? Because that's the fun part. I'm going to take this one first because, it's an easy, uncontentious subject where Gohan had called in to talk heathen with questions about abortion. And I figure this is such an easy topic. We should just start the show with it. So, plus I asked him to call. So how you doing, Gohan?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
I'm all right. I think I can short circuit this without you having to go through your 6 questions and all of that, because.
Well, before you do that, I just want to say thank you for your service when in the Navy. That's not something I was brave enough to do, and I'm still of age to do it. I'm just not brave enough to do it.
I don't consider it brave at all. I was literally 18 and out of other options and did it, and I was in for like 8 years. But I appreciate your thank you.
You put your life on the line for me, so thank you.
I'm not convinced I actually put my life on the line for anybody, but that's a fantasy that somebody's built up in your head. But anyway, I appreciate that. So I've already, you talked about you'd.
Damn. I ain't know Matt was like that because he said he was in the military. I heard him say that before, but I ain't never heard him talk that shit like that. Like, oh, I don't think I ever put my life on the line for anybody. Like, the military's, I don't know. I got so many gripes about that shit. And I got a little cousin in boot camp right now. You know what I'm saying? He just saying he 18, going to the Army. And it's like, dude, I just feel kind of bad for him, These motherfuckers be having these ideas of what it means to be a soldier, and that shit is just a fucking pawn, bro. And it's big ass political chess game. That fucking military don't give a fuck about nobody. They throw soldiers out there like it ain't shit. But they say war is old man talking and young man dying.
The debate that I did with Christian Kruszelnicki, and of course my view of abortion rights. I don't really particularly care whether somebody thinks it's moral or immoral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard you say that before.
I'm more concerned with whether or not it's legal. But if we're going to have this conversation, you came up with what is, in my mind, a fairly common objection to the bodily autonomy thing. Because my view is, does anyone have the right to use someone else's body without their consent? And if the answer is no, then a fetus, even if it was in there doing calculus and going to solve cancer, it still doesn't have the right to use a woman's body without their consent. And you came up with the conjoined twins example and a particular version of it where you have 2 conjoined twins and one of them can survive without the other, but the other one's dependent on it. And the response to that is a simple question. or a couple simple questions.
It's
Is a woman born?
going crazy.
Your dogs are going crazy. Be my high-pitched voice.
There's another dog outside. Okay.
I don't know. Your phone keeps kind of going quiet with all that. So, is a woman born pregnant?
No.
Okay. So the difference is that when those conjoined twins are born, while they are separate persons with separate brains, they are born interdependent, and they don't have the right to establish ownership over their shared body independent of the other one. And so that's why it's a flawed analogy when we're talking about a woman who becomes pregnant. Because abortion is not the right to. Sorry, what?
I said, like, with pregnancy, almost any analogy, it's going to be flawed.
Exactly. So let's stop using them and let's actually talk about the case in fact.
So you're against using analogies?
If the analogy is flawed.
Just kind of with this example.
If an analogy is flawed, not all analogies are flawed to this extent, but if you're in agreement that you're not going to be able to come up with an analogy for pregnancy that is going to lead us to a conclusion about pregnancy, then let's stop using them. And why not?
No, yeah, I did say that. I said all analogies are not like the exact same, but I think it can lead us to a conclusion, especially about bodily autonomy.
Except that it can't.
Well, I would say that you said before that bodily autonomy, there's no situation where you can have someone use somebody else's body without their consent. I would say this is a situation. So
no, you're not. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. This is the point where the analogy is flawed. This is what I'm trying to point out. A woman isn't born pregnant. There wasn't a situation where the two individuals were individuals, where one of them had rights that were co-opted by another. When you talk about the conjoined twins, they were born, both of them having equal claim over the shared portion of the body. And that is why the analogy is flawed, and it does not apply to pregnancy. Sorry, what?
Do you think the claim of who has more rights over their body switches depending on dependency?
Who else has right over my body?
Nobody has right over somebody else's body.
So dependency doesn't matter.
Correct.
So then
this is the whole point. Hang on, pause. This is the whole point of the violinist argument. If I'm kidnapped and hooked up to someone, they don't, and their life is now dependent on mine. I'm kidnapped by somebody,
right,
and they hook me up to that other person to the point that that person's life is now dependent on mine. That doesn't put an obligation on me. I may choose to stay hooked up to them or not, but under no circumstances am I obligated to remain connected to that person because they don't have a right to use my body without my consent.
Yeah, and that's kind of going along with other arguments I've heard you make before.
Yes, because I'm consistent.
And courts with people not having to donate or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
But conjoined twins are different because it's not one twin using another's body. It's two people with one shared body that they have shared rights.
No, but it wouldn't be a shared body.
It is a shared body. That's conjoined twins. By definition, it's a shared body.
What do you think it is if it's not a shared body?
If they're not dependent on each other, if one is not...
If they're not dependent on each other, then they can be separated. And we've separated conjoined twins that are joined by just...
What if one is dependent while the other is not dependent?
Then the one that's dependent is dependent on things that are that agent's body. It's a shared thing.
His body or hers, right. So in that case, it is coming down to dependency because the one...
No, it's not coming down to dependency. It's coming down to the fact that, okay, here's two people who are born conjoined, but they share a heart. They both have equal claim to that heart.
Okay. But it is, as they develop, they become adults, and now actually only one twin needs the other to survive, and the other could survive without the other twin.
Okay, you're not paying attention. The one...
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little lost with your...
I figured this was going to be incredibly easy, but you're not paying attention. These are two thinking beings that share a part of a body. The fact that one of them doesn't necessarily need something other than what they would leave with, how do you, if it's one heart, let's say, how do you determine which one you're going to give the heart to? Because I can cut these... Hey, stop. The fact that the heart may be... Jenna and I are now conjoined twins, and she's the only one with a heart, because I'm a heartless motherfucker. the heart is in her chest. I'm dependent upon that heart. She is not dependent on anything that happens to be in my chest. But our bodies are conjoined. That is my heart, and it is her heart.
Right.
This is why this
that's
is.
sounding pretty darn close to fetus.
No, it's absolutely not.
So hold on. So is a fetus born with my heart if I get pregnant? Does that fetus have? If I get pregnant right now, and
Right.
I have a baby, does that fetus share my heart?
It relies on your heart.
But does it have my heart? Is my heart part of that fetus's body?
Was there a time when Jenna did not have a fetus in her that was reliant upon her heart?
Yes.
Was there a time that one of those conjoined twins was not dependent on the heart that they're sharing?
Yeah, in this example.
No, there's not.
That now they are not dependent on the other heart.
No, you're not paying attention. Was there time when one of those twins was not dependent on the heart that they share?
Yes.
No, there wasn't.
When?
When was that?
It's right. So in this example, I'm saying right now, it's not dependent on the other one's heart.
You just said that one of the two isn't dependent on the other's heart, but it's not the other's. It's
Right.
The other one doesn't. They are sharing a heart.
Right.
So when did the first fetus not share that heart? When did it have something other than that heart?
It's the only heart it's ever
When
had.
did the fetus?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting lost with the two now.
Sorry.
When did the fetus not have that heart?
Mm-hmm.
When did the conjoined twin not have that?
One of the twins. You're saying,
Okay,
hold on, you said that
when did
one of the twins.
not share the heart.
Okay, this is becoming rapidly a waste of time. There are two.
There's too many analogies.
No, the analogy's fucking flawed, which is what I was trying to point out. There is no
It's
point.
not- it's not-
Oh my God, shut up. There was no point.
Why are you being so rude?
Because I'm trying to explain something and you keep interrupting. There was no.
I feel like we've had a pretty productive conversation.
I don't.
I don't. Does anybody out there think we've had a really productive conversation? Because I explained something that's incredibly simple. And because you have a bias where you are trying to argue against a position, you're not seeing the simplicity of this. Here, a woman and a fetus, two separate entities. The woman existed completely independent, was never dependent upon a fetus, never had to share anything with the fetus. The fetus comes along afterwards and attaches itself to her, and now it is completely dependent. And now it is using another person's body without their consent. When in the case of conjoined twins with a shared heart, both people require that heart and always have. It wasn't like one person walked up and attached them to somebody else and said, I'm now going to use the heart that was yours. That heart was never Jenna's, it was ours.
So I think if I can try to sum up, you're saying the problem with the analogy is that in the past, with the fetus is always dependent on it, but with the conjoined twins, no?
No, what he's saying is that the twins were born together, and me and the fetus would not have been born together.
Okay, so in the past, the mother was not dependent on the fetus.
Correct.
The mother's never been dependent on her.
The mother is not dependent on any fetus.
And at one time there was no fetus.
So, but with the problem with my analogy is that in the past, forever, the two twins have always been dependent on each other.
Yes.
The problem with your analogy is this: two twins, one heart. You are assuming that heart belongs to one, and not both.
Well, I didn't say it's the heart. I mean,
whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's a brain. Maybe that's the problem with this call.
Right.
Are you sharing a brain with somebody?
Or a body, or anything. The fact is that they were born
I'd
together.
be happy to share a brain with everybody.
Okay.
I mean,
But
Yeah.
thanks, we're done. I figured this would be a really quick and easy thing because the analogy that you came up with is horribly flawed. The only thing that I'm saying with respect to abortion rights and legality is about whether or not a person has a right to use somebody else's body without their consent. And you come up with an analogy that is, well, what about conjoined twins in this particularly weird situation where if we were to separate them, one would survive and one wouldn't? Well, the reason one wouldn't is because they were born, both of them dependent upon that heart. And you seem to be deciding that geography, that the heart is in Jenna's chest, means that we can, we could separate and Matt would die, but we'll leave the heart chest. Well, why don't we just separate, but pull that heart and put it in my chest? Because I have just as much claim to it, and that's the thing. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a heart or whatever the thing may be. Now, the thing is, he can't get over this flawed analogy. There are really cool issues related to that analogy outside of that. One example is that if we can separate conjoined twins, where neither of them are dependent on something that is geographically located separate from the normalized body container, we do separate them. But what happens if Jenna and I are conjoined twins, and things that are in this part of the geography are going to kill us both unless we separate and allow Jenna to live? Do we have a right, does Jenna have a right to force that separation? Because if we don't separate, we both die. And if we do separate, Jenna lives. Now, I think all of us would agree that I would be incredibly selfish to say, nope, if I'm going to die, you're going to die. And so I think most of us would say, by all means, separate and you go on about your life. But the question then becomes, does Jenna have the right to say, I'm separating from you because it's going to kill me if I don't, even though it's going to kill you? That is an interesting moral quandary that we may or may not have a good answer to.
But it's not as simple as, and it's not as common as pregnancy.
Yeah, but it's not like, hey, here's every woman, every cis woman or any woman with ovaries and the ability to reproduce, running around constantly facing the prospect that at any given time, whether it be through unprotected sex or a failure of birth control, they
Sexual
wind up
assault.
pregnant, and people like you want to argue that they are now forced to serve as a life support system for that entity. And one of the problems here is that these same people also trivialize pregnancy because, gosh, it happened, my mom had to be pregnant in order to have me, and infant mortality rates and deaths from pregnancies have dramatically declined as our medical knowledge has increased. So obviously pregnancy is trivial. But the truth of the matter is pregnancy is not trivial. It fundamentally changes a woman's body forever, and you're overlooking all the consequences related to actually having and taking care of a child, or, well, you can give it up for adoption. You don't get to use that argument.
Not everybody can.
Yeah. The issue here is, even if it's a person, which I don't necessarily think that a cluster of cells should qualify for personhood, but personhood isn't the issue, which is why people arguing in favor of abortion should stop using it and rely, in my opinion, on bodily rights. Because, like I said, even if it's in there doing calculus in the womb that's going to lead to a cancer cure for the entirety of humanity, that still doesn't give it the right to use a woman's body without her consent. And that's why I started the show with it, because I knew that'd be really easy.
Good call.
It only took like 20 minutes. Nothing to we've solved abortion.
I mean, I'm completely pro-choice. I'm not sure if I agree with either one of their analogies, but
Kelly and
I'm
Iran,
pro-choice.
thanks for waiting. You're on with Donna
You know what I'm
Matt.
saying? Some people don't need to have kids.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Matt.
Hi.
How are you? I'm sorry about my voice. It's a bit annoying.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, I've been looking into Matt's arguments against the causal argument for God's existence. But first of all, before I delve into that, the question that you raised just before answering my call, why would God create anything? Very interesting question, and I think I can offer an answer, at least from the Muslim perspective, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Now that is a good question, Otto. I'm not exactly sure, bro. I can't remember the last time I did watercolors or purchased watercolor paper, but let me think on this shit, yo. Just think logically, yo. I would assume that you could use either side of the paper. Okay. Well, yeah. Um, just because with most art papers, any kind of paper based medium for you to draw or paint on, it has to be consistent through and through. I've never seen any type of sketch pad paper or drawing pad or watercolor paper that I am familiar with that's different on one side, and the one side to make it different would have to be like laminated or have some kind of sealer or bonder on the back of it. I've never seen anything like that. So I would imagine it, yeah, you could just use either side of a page. Yeah, I watched the I watched all of the current episodes of the Watchmen TV show, and I watched a lot of episodes because I thought it was pretty good, pretty interesting. And I watched the movie back in the day when it came out, The Watchmen, and when it first came out, I really didn't get it, and then I watched it again, like I don't know, in the past couple of years, I watched the movie again. I liked the movie because then like I'm a really big Walking Dead fan, and the dude who plays Negan, I don't even know his real name, but that's the only show I've ever seen him on is The Walking Dead. And then when I went back and watched Watchmen again, and I was like, yo, that's fucking Negan. And he was like who the whole story was kind of based, well, his character was who the whole fucking movie was based around. I was like, oh shit. So I paid more attention the second time around. And so I liked that movie. And so when I started watching the TV show, I was expecting, something like the movie. And it's it's way different from the movie. From what I remembered of it anyway, and it's like, okay. But I still watched it. I'm watching it. Yeah, that watercolor paper should have a little bit more bite to it, a little more grip, so you can pull that lead off deeper. But watching the television version of the Watchmen, I was like, okay, so it's different, but it was really good to me. And so the other day, I don't know, for some reason and I don't do this a lot, but because I could care less most of the time. I just looked up reviews for the Watchmen show because it is a lot of like controversial stuff in there. And so once I don't know, I was just bored as shit, and I was like fucking surfing through YouTube, and I was like, all right, let me see some Watchmen reviews and what people think about this, I listened to like 3 different people, all of them hated that shit. I was like, damn. But and I've never read the comic book. One dude said he actually was a major fan of the comic book. Read the whole series, but I don't know. From what I understand, the comic book is old as fuck, yo. And like, I'm getting up in age, but even I was only like 5 or 6 when Watchmen comics were first being published. So oh crap. I got that gray paper. Yeah, I'm liking this. I need to get in my sketch pad more. This one isn't really finished yet. I need to add some more stuff. Darken the hair up. There's barely anything in here. Why? Because I don't draw enough. Fuck. I be getting all kind of shit on my drawings. Damn it, man. Damn, that shit soaked through a lot of pages. Oh, man. Oh, man. Sit. Yo, what up, what up, what up, what up, everybody? I definitely gotta get me a drafting table. Hey, don't y'all wanna look out for a brother and order me a drafting table and send it to me? Hmm? The best nation is donation. Okay. I think that is that. All right, I'm feeling that. Now I just have to do his arms. And then we can attach you can see how it'll overlay and attach the arms and hinge it here so that they go up and down. And I actually feel like this is too short, so essentially I want these tabs to connect to here, but even just the restriction of the paper size, I made it as wide as I could, and these are still too short. So in the print process, we'll just cut it here and extend it in the real world, and so that they connect here and hinge here and go up and down and make a larger version of that. So now I just gotta work on this. But I'm gonna do that downstairs while I watch TV or something. And I'll get with you guys next time.